Hello again everybody, welcome to a new guide for Destiny 2 Black Armory. Today I'll be going over how to beat the Volundr Forge at 600 power. The Volundr Forge is the first new activity of Black Armory content, and it is quite difficult with the recommended power starting at 610 and the final boss being 630. In a month, I'm sure we'll be able to clear this forge pretty easily without much of a struggle, but since it's still very early on, as I'm recording this is the second day of Black Armory, prepare for a challenge. This forge can absolutely be beat by a team of 600 Guardians, but of course if you rather have your first forge go smoothly, I'd recommend doing milestones and continuing to grind and get power, as boring as that may sound. But that's not why you're watching this guide, and you want to know how to beat it now. So let's get into it. I'll go over team composition and what our loadouts were, and while there might be much more flexibility for these things in the future when people are leveled up, this is going to be my recommended strategy for low-level Guardians. I've tried a bunch of methods, but this one ended up being the winning combo. For reference, in this gameplay I was 603 power, and the other players were 601 and 609. Our team comp was as follows. I was a top tree Nightstalker hunter with Orpheus Rigs. Controlling adds and making orbs to chain supers makes it easier to take down the phased enemies, which are the blue guys, and that's crucial for this activity. We also had a Well of Radiance Warlock with Lunafaction Boots, because staying alive during the boss fight is very important, and doing damage and staying alive are the two hardest parts of the forge when underleveled. And finally, we had an Arcstrider hunter using Raiden Flux to help with clearing adds and stunning the boss. This is not the only team comp you can use, of course. You could absolutely substitute the Raiden Flux hunter for a Sentinel Titan with Doomfang Pauldron, or a Sunbreaker with Synthoceps if you've got a Titan on your team. But again, this is what I found to be the easiest way to beat this right now. For loadouts, primary isn't too important, you can really use whatever you want. I swap between using the Midnight Coup, which is a hand cannon from year 1, and the Chattering Bone Pulse Rifle from the Last Wish raid. One of my teammates was using the Gambit Pulse Bygones. It's really up to you. For special weapons, all of us had an Escalation Protocol shotgun, and for heavy, 2 of us had the Thunderlord exotic machine gun while 1 of us used Tractor Cannon. So, here's a few tips I'll give you while watching the gameplay in the background that are going to be crucial for beating this early on. First off, stick together. In the gameplay you'll see we chose a side and for the most part are all together the entire time. Really the only time we separate is when we're throwing the batteries into the forge. Sticking together is going to be really important because trying to take on a phased gladiator or a large group of adds by yourself, especially when they are higher level than you, is not fun. Double teaming and triple teaming powerful enemies will also help you save ammo, which is a really important factor of this activity. Being near each other also means you can revive your teammates, which is a plus. Your goal here is to simply kill as many blue dudes, aka phased enemies, as you can, pick up the batteries that they drop, and then throw them into the forge. You have a very short amount of time, so deaths are something you really want to avoid here. Our team found that sticking together in what we call caves seemed to work best because there was a lot of phased enemies that spawned over here, and a lot of cover. You start out with 1 full minute to clear the first round, but you get plus 5 seconds for every blue enemy you kill, and plus 1 second for throwing in the batteries, of which you need 20 thrown into the forge to get to the next round. The second thing you want to coordinate is chaining supers. This is extremely important. You don't want everyone to pop a super at the same time. One person uses their super to clear out a bunch of adds, which helps the next person get their super and clear out a bunch of adds, etc. Using your tether and then having a Raiden Flux Arcstrider or Sentinel Titan swoop in and help clear out the tethered dudes is a very good example of comboing supers, which is something you want to do as well. Essentially, you want to be somewhat close to always having your super at all times. Clearing enemies is way faster with supers, which allows you more time to get those batteries in. Another tip is let the enemies come to you. There's definitely a bit of randomness involved in this activity. Sometimes there ends up being less phased enemies that spawn near you, which can definitely mess up a run. But usually you want to lock down an area with your team, like we did in caves, and let the phased enemies come to you. This way you're not running out in the open and getting shot from every possible direction, constantly dying, and then losing a lot of time. The first wave isn't that bad since the enemies are only 610 power and the scions are pretty easy to kill. The second wave is when it really starts to get a bit hectic. My advice again is to lock down the same area as before. I'd recommend caves again since it's the easiest part of the forge to defend. And on round 1, you had blue scions and gladiators you needed to kill for the batteries. This time it's going to be legionnaires and colossi. And the enemies are 625 power, so even more deadly. Sticking together and all focusing on the same blue enemy is going to be the most important thing here. While you can take on the legionnaires by yourself, you will not be able to fight one of the colossus alone unless you plan on using 150 rounds of Thunderlord ammo on one dude. Once again, you have a minute to beat this round and throw 20 batteries into the forge, plus 5 seconds for a blue dude and plus 1 for a battery. Communication in the second wave, and even just for the entire activity as a whole, is paramount, as you should be coordinating your supers and letting your teammates know where the phased enemies are to help you kill them. It's also a very good idea to keep an eye on the clock. If you're starting to run low on time, make an effort to kill a lot of the phased enemies and even pop your super if it's necessary. In one of our runs, we were able to get an extra 15 seconds because I tethered a bunch of phased enemies and we were able to shred them with our shotguns. This meant we could recover, had more time to get batteries, and were able to complete the round. Now, if you have some time and you're getting close to the end of the round, it's a good idea to start killing some normal enemies for heavy and special ammo drops. Something we did was have the guy with the most ammo hang on to the last battery, while the rest of us tried to stock up on ammo for the boss. Going into the third wave, you want to try and have all your supers ready and as much ammo as you can. Once you make it to the boss, here's how you want to approach it. When the third round starts, stand at the very back of the room near the broken bridge you crossed when you entered the forge. When Galak or Galak, the Colossus, spawns, he'll spawn with a shield and Sentinel drones protecting him. Start shooting down some of those drones and leave one left. If you destroy the shield, it'll come back before you're ready to do damage. Let him wander into the middle of the arena so that he can be surrounded by the other adds. Once the other enemies surround him, move to the left side of the boss and have your Nightstalker tether the boss as the other two players destroy the last drone, keeping his shield up. The tether should grab him and the other enemies around him, giving your hunter almost a full super and making orbs for your teammates. At this point, you want to have your Warlock put down the Well of Radiance on the edge of the platform here, and then have your Arcstrider go in to stagger the boss. The person with the Tractor Cannon can apply it to the boss, and then two of you shotgun and Thunderlord him while the Arcstrider stuns him. Not sure why he ended up this far away in our gameplay, but usually he stays right near the ledge where we are. Once the Arcstrider finishes stunning the boss, the hunter wants to look for another opportunity to tether all of the surrounding enemies and the boss at the same time. Your goal here is to make enough orbs for your teammates so the Warlock can slap down another well. If you don't keep up the damage on the boss here, his shield will come back. Don't panic, just focus on the drones and get him vulnerable again. While trying to do as much damage as possible, the hunter should be looking for their next opportunity to tether to make more orbs for the Arcstrider. Use everything you've got here and focus on doing damage, and have the person with the Tractor Cannon keep reapplying the debuff. The Tractor Cannon is definitely optional here, but it does make a big difference. Alternatively, if you have a Sunbreaker Titan, have them go in for the melting point, aka hammer strike ability in the top tree, and then you can save your heavy slot for something like Thunderlord. Even though the boss is 630 power and you may be 30 levels under him, he will go down if you stay focused and keep up the damage and keep chaining supers. Another strategy here is to have a Warlock put down a Well of Radiance in the back of the room where we started on round 3 and have everyone use Whisper of the Worm. You can send one person to clear adds while the other two focus on damage, and then rejoin in the back and keep your distance from the boss. This is definitely going to be easier on PC as we tried it on console, but it can be very hard to keep his head in your sights and keep up your damage. Shotgunning and getting up close and personal, while definitely more dangerous, ended up being the more efficient strategy right now, although I'm sure that will change when people increase their power. After you successfully kill the boss, you'll finish your quest and be rewarded with a powerful Hammerhead legendary machine gun. It's randomly rolled, and I'm not sure if there's a curated version of it, but in the collections the rolls show up as Rampage, Feeding Frenzy, and Armor Piercing Rounds, which sounds much better than the roll I got. After beating the forge, you can head back to Ada 1, and now you get full access to our inventory of daily and weekly bounties, the new weapon frames and mod components, and you unlock the Black Armory seal as well as the Black Armory Collections badge, where you can take a look at all of the neat new stuff to earn. As I mentioned much earlier in the video, this is going to be very hard because the recommended power was set so high. It's definitely a bit confusing why Bungie did that, and while many of us may not agree with their decision, I would highly recommend giving this at least a try even if you are underleveled. It's always exciting to beat something very challenging in the early days of new activities, so I promise you it's both possible and worth it. Otherwise, keep doing your milestones and grinding for more power, and soon enough this activity will be easy. Thanks for watching everybody, hopefully this helps, and stay tuned for more Destiny 2 Black Armory guides.
Welcome to the Black Armory.